Okay, thank you all for coming. I'm Angela Bestplug. With me are my colleagues Janelle O'Connor, also of Klein Lawyers, and Patrick Higgerty, QC of Higgerty Law. We're class counsel in federal court action Tiller and Her Majesty the Queen, which was filed on behalf of female non-policing personnel who experienced gender or sexual orientation-based harassment while working or volunteering with the RCMP. We're here today to announce that a class action settlement has been reached between the RCMP and the plaintiffs in this case. The total value of the settlement is estimated to be $100 million, although the actual value will depend on how many claims are received. The action has now been certified by the federal court as a class proceeding for settlement purposes, and the settlement approval hearing for the agreement will take place on October 17th of this year. The settlement is national in scope and covers a period spanning 45 years, from September 16, 1974 to July 5th, 2019. The settlement provides for a safe, confidential, and independent claims process led by female assessors. There are 6 levels of compensation ranging from $10,000 to $220,000, depending on the nature of the harassment endured and the impact that it has had on a claimant's life, as determined by the assessor. The settlement is not capped, meaning that all women with eligible claims will be paid. The settlement also includes a no retaliation directive within the RCMP, so women can make a claim to the settlement without fear of retaliation. We are hopeful that this settlement will provide closure for women who experience gender or sexual orientation in the RCMP workplace. We encourage these women to come forward. We would like to thank our plaintiffs, Cheryl Tiller, Mary Ellen Copeland, and Dana Roche, for their bravery in commencing this action and for sharing their deeply personal stories. The resilience has been humbling. The settlement is reflective of a cultural shift within the RCMP and within the Canadian society in general. Sexual harassment and assault will no longer be tolerated. We are proud of this settlement and the voice that it gives to women. While no amount of money can compensate these women for the harms that they've endured, we hope that this settlement is indicative of a better tomorrow. Thank you for coming.
Are you confident that this is going to have an impact on an organization like the RCMP to make changes internally?
Yes, I'm hopeful that I think the RCMP is in the midst of a cultural shift, and I think there is a genuine effort to make change within that organization.
How many claimants do you think that you'll have? I know you have 3 women who love this, but how many have you had anybody come forward?
Yeah, so statistically, our estimate is approximately 1,500 claims to the settlement. 1500.
But potentially there are 41,000 employees in that time period, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Do you know where those claimants are? Because obviously, or even an idea of where geographically they can concentrate, one area that stands out?
For sure. So the settlement is national in scope. So any women across the country who are class members and who were affected can apply to make a claim to the settlement. It is heavily Western focused in terms of the majority of municipal RCMP detachments are in British Columbia and Alberta, but they do span across the nation.
When you say there's no cap, could you explain what that means in terms of the actual amount?
Yes, so what it means is that any class members who submit a claim to the settlement and who are determined by an assessor to have an eligible claim within the meaning of the settlement will be paid. So in some class actions, there's a cap meaning a limit on the amount of compensation that will be paid. And so if the number of eligible claims exceeds that, there's a ratchet down. So in this case, there won't be. There are 6 categories of compensation, regardless of how many women make claims to the settlement. Anyone with an eligible claim, as determined by the assessor, will get paid the full amount.
Could you
So
see
that 100
potential?
million that you, was it 100 million?
That's correct.
That may rise.
It could. It could be less, it could be more. Our estimate is 100 million.
Angela, how important are the cases that came before this one? I mean, 3 years ago, there were 2
Yeah.
major cases that were settled. How important was that to this case?
I definitely think it was the beginning of a cultural shift within the RCMP. So Merlot Davidson helped pave the way for a different cultural environment within the RCMP that perhaps made this case a little more likely to settle.
And can you talk a little bit about what this has been like for Cheryl Tiller and some of the people that have come forward? I mean, what
Yeah.
kind of challenges are there to be the person named in the suit?
You know, when you're the named plaintiff, you're sharing, you agree to share your story with the world. And in a case like this, where these stories are so deeply personal, I think it takes its impact. I think there's a big emotional and psychological toll in terms of doing that. You also open yourself up to public scrutiny, which is why these women were so brave to come forward and give their name and their voices to this case so it could proceed for other women.
And how much pushback was there from the RCMP? I mean, once this was certified, was it just a go ahead, or was there?
No, nothing's a go-ahead in litigation. It's always a lot of work to reach a settlement. This case was no different.
When you were talking about the no retaliation clause, do you have a rough estimate of how many of these plaintiffs are still working at the RCMP?
We don't, but there definitely are a significant number of class members who are still currently working or volunteering with the RCMP.
In past settlements, there was some criticism when the commander said, you know, apologies to some people, but not all of them. How do you react to Brenda Luckey's apology to all members?
I think it's a genuine apology. I do think the RCMP is in the process of changing its culture. In this case, it's appropriate. Again, these women shared their stories, have endured significant emotional distress, lending their name to the claim. I think it's appropriate that her statement was addressed to this group in this case.
As a female lawyer reading some of these complaints, how did you react personally? Some of them are pretty shocking.
They are. Some of them are horrific. And I think that this is a type of case, as a female lawyer, that you always dream and hope of getting to run. I think it's so many women had been impacted by this behavior. And so to try and achieve justice for them and some sense of closure is very rewarding.
Can you talk about the categories you mentioned? So from 1 to 6, I think you said 10,000 to 220.
Yep.
What's the difference?
So there are 6 levels of compensation, as you noted, ranging from 10,000 to 220,000. Well, it's ultimately for the an assessor to determine what level of compensation a claimant will be entitled to, if any. The more severe the harm and the impact on the woman, the higher the compensation.
What was the highest impact? Can you give us some examples of that?
Yeah, so it's not a checklist settlement. So again, it's going to be for the assessor to determine. But for example, if someone was raped in the RCMP workplace by an RCMP member, that would likely make her eligible for compensation at the highest level, assuming she met the requirements.
And what what did the women have to go through to sort of solidify their claims to that degree if the RCMP has been denying this?
So the claims process under this settlement is meant to be non-traumatizing, as non-traumatizing as it can possibly be. For the lower levels, it's a paper-based process. For the highest levels, it's an interview. So claimants will not be cross-examined in an open hearing. It's meant to be trauma-informed. It's meant to be empathetic to the emotional and psychological harms many of them have endured. And it's meant to be and is a confidential claims process. So again, a lot of these women are worried about retaliation. And so the process is designed to ensure that it's confidential, so that's not a concern.
Given that some of these accusations are criminal in nature, do you think that the success of this is going to maybe encourage some of the women to pursue criminal charges?
I think it's a definite possibility. Again, it's hard to know because so many of these women are emotionally scarred. Some of them have PTSD. And so, laying criminal charges and the stress that goes with that is a heavy emotional toll. Do I think some women may pursue that course? Probably, but I don't know.
And as a result of this, do you believe that the RCMP is going to take any kind of punitive action against any of the members who were accused of possibly part?
I daren't answer on their behalf.
Do you have a ballpark estimate of how many women this might?
I'm sorry,
Ballpark estimate of how many women this might?
that it might have impacted?
Yeah, this might come to include. So.
Statistically, we estimate approximately 1,500 women are likely to make claims. Could be less, could be more. Thank you. Okay. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Just want to make sure that the difference between what's going on today as the certified class action in October, they will have approved.
Yeah, so right now the action has been what's called certified for settlement purposes, and that means the federal court has ordered that it is now officially and legally a class proceeding, and has defined the class that's included in the settlement. So in October, it will be approval of the settlement.
We have a signed settlement agreement with the defendant, but it's subject to the approval of the defendant.
It is heavily Western focused in terms of where most of these claimants are coming from.
Yeah.
Any other specifics, like these are regions, they just.
So in terms of breakdown, I think a lot of the affected women are municipal employees, but it does also apply to contractors, volunteers,
Right.
employees of nonprofits.
We estimate most of our class members to be in British Columbia, Alberta, and Ottawa, Ontario. That's the largest concentrations.
Sorry, I didn't hear your question. But great, perfect.
There are 154 municipal police service agreements in the country, and of those, 65 are in British Columbia, and that's 42%, and 45 are in Alberta, that's 29%. So between BC and Alberta, trying to assess the relative weighting of participants, that would reflect about 70% of the country. But that's not the be-all, end-all. It's just one indicia in terms of assessing, how many members or how many claimants are going to come from each quarter of the country.
And people have moved on as well and live in different parts of the country as well.
Right.
That's
So
right.
something to factor in.
Can I get that Alberta number again? 65 in BC, which is 42%,
And 45 in Alberta, 29%.
Thank you very much.
And this would be people that worked, like volunteering for the RCMP, worked for a city for the RCMP. Would it be non-members that work within a detachment, perhaps?
Yeah, so those numbers speak to the number of municipal detachments. So within RCMP municipal detachments, you have a lot of the administrative jobs are filled by municipal employees. So they're paid by the municipality, but they're fully integrated into the RCMP workplace. And then in addition, you'd have employees of nonprofits, so for victim services, and Block Watch, those type of organizations, and volunteers, contractors, et cetera. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Could I just get you to repeat those numbers?
Sure. There are 154 municipal police service agreements in Canada, and of which 45 are in Alberta, reflecting 29% of them, and 65 are in BC, 42%. So looking at the demographics from that perspective, 70% are between Alberta and BC.
For the purposes of clarity, those are locations where the RCMP has municipal policing service agreements, not necessarily full detachments.
And that's not the only environment in which these claims arise, but it's a big one.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.